Good morning, boys and girls. Today we're going to be learning about life cycles and what all makes up a life cycle. Does anybody know what a life cycle is? Raise your hand. Okay, so there can be a life cycle with plants, with animals, and the life cycles are pretty much the same, give or take a few steps. So we're going to watch a quick video, and it's going to go over the different type of life cycles, and then we're going to get into it, okay?
How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know. Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know.
A plant starts with the seed and then you wait. It pushes up from the ground, we call this germinate. It grows into a seedling, then an adult plant. Its seeds will fall to the ground and it starts over again.
Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know.
A bird forms in an egg until it's ready to hatch. It will break out and be a baby bird in a nest. It grows bigger till it's ready to fly, and then it lays an egg and it starts all over again.
Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know.
A frog starts from one of many eggs. It hatches into a tadpole, then it grows legs. It turns into a young frog that grows up, and then it lays many eggs and it starts all over again.
Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know.
An egg hatches and becomes a tiny caterpillar. This is called a larva. It grows bigger and bigger. It forms into a pupa, also called a chrysalis. And inside it will be starting metamorphosis, which means it's moving and changing all of its things and turning into something else. An insect with wings. A butterfly comes out looking for a mate, and then it lays more eggs and it starts all over again.
Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want to know. Where do you come from? How do you grow? How do you change? Then where do you go? Exactly how does your life cycle flow? This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want to know.
Okay, so that was our little life cycle video. As you can see, there are basically the same parts when you go from a plant to an animal and how they produce and how the whole life cycle goes, give or take a few steps. So right now we're going to go over some keywords. I'm going to write them on the board. And these are words that I really want you to focus on and really learn these words. Because this is to understand the life cycle, you're going to have to understand these key terms. So I'm going to write them on the board, then we'll go over the definition for the words. So while I'm doing this, get out a sheet of paper and write down the key terms with me, and then as I go over the definitions, jot down just a brief summary of what I say so that you can remember it. So our first key term is going to be organisms. So our first key term is organisms. Our second key decomposers. Our fifth key term is going to be alive. And as of right now, you should have organisms, mushroom, fungi, decomposers, and alive as your key terms written down on your paper. Our sixth key term is going to be dead. Our seventh key term is going to be animals. Our eighth key term is going to be plants. And our ninth key term is going to be environment. So on your paper, you should have organisms, mushroom, fungi, decomposers, alive, dead, animals, plants, and the environment. So now I'm going to go over the definitions. I'd like for you to just jot down a few terms or ways that you can summarize it for you to learn for yourself. So an organism is an individual animal or plant that is alive. So organisms are alive. So if I was doing that, I'd make next, which I didn't leave enough room, but I would write alive next to my organisms on my paper. For mushroom, it's a fungal growth that typically has a cap and a stalk, also known as a decomposer. So for a mushroom, I think we've all seen mushrooms before, so I would write next to it, I would put it's a decomposer. For fungi, I would put it's a group of spore-producing organisms that feed on living or dead organisms. So for fungi, I would put it feeds off of living or dead organisms. I'm sure you've seen fungi in ponds, and sometimes we have it in our house. But I would put that it feeds on living and dead organisms. For our fourth key term, that would be decomposers, and I would put any organism that feeds on a dead organism to break down the previous chemical compounds to be reused. So decomposers feed off of dead organisms. Alive is just an organism that is living, alert, active, or not dead. Dead is an organism that no longer is living, no longer active, and is not alive. Animals are living organisms made up of cells that respond to their environment. Animals need food, oxygen, and water to survive, and so do we. We need food, water, and oxygen for humans to survive. Plants would be a living organism like trees, grass, and flowers that get their energy through photosynthesis. So I would put next to plants, because we all know what plants are, right? I would put next to plants, I would put get their energy through photosynthesis. And then for an environment is a plant or animal surrounding. So an environment could be a backyard. An environment could be the jungle, the desert. It could be like marshlands. So different plants and animals live in all those different environments. So all of those key terms go along with the life cycle. So now we're going to talk about, I'm going to just draw a little diagram over here of a life cycle of a plant. And if I was you, I would just take your key term paper that you're writing everything down on, and I would actually draw this diagram so that you have this for our assignment later on, that if you have any questions, you can go back and look at it. So we start with a seed. So you know how you can go to the store and you can buy little packs of seeds to plant in a garden. That's it's not always how it goes, but we're just for this example, we're going to talk about if you buy seed or a pack of seeds and you go plant it in your garden, how it's going to go. So it's going to go from a seed, and then it's going to get germinated. So then we're going to have germination. And ignore my bad pictures, but you can kind of tell what I'm saying. And then you're going to have your seed, and then it's going to sprout. So your seed's going to sprout, and then it's going to go to a seedling. And after it's a seedling, it's going to turn into a plant. And then what do we think that's going to happen once our plant forms? Raise your hand. Okay, so after our plant forms, then our plant is going to grow flowers. And then once our plant with flowers grows, then our plant with flowers is going to give off seeds, and then we're going to start the whole plant life cycle again. And this is the same concept for the animal life cycle as well. Once you have something and it's grown, and it'll eventually die over or reproduce. So that's just a little example of our plant life cycle. And all of our key terms play a huge part in every single life cycle that you come in contact with, whether that's plant or animal. So for our next activity, we are going to do, I'm going to pass around a worksheet for you to do, and you're going to go over and label the different steps of the life cycles, and I'm also going to have some questions on your key terms on there. But before we do that, I just want to ask you a few questions over our key terms, just as a refresher before you have that worksheet. So, what is an individual that's an animal or plant and it's alive? Let's raise our hands. Yes, an organism is an individual animal or plant that is alive. What about a living organism made up of cells that responds to its environment, and it has to have food, oxygen, and water to live? What about that? What is that? That's right, that's an animal. And what about a living organism like trees, grass, and flowers that use photosynthesis? That's right, that's going to be our plants. And what about a plant or animal surroundings? What is that going to be? Let's look on our, sorry, maybe you can't see through me. Let's look through our key terms and what is going to be a plant or animal's surroundings. That's right, it's going to be its environment. So now I'm going to pass around your sheet, and you're going to fill in some of the key term questions, and you're going to do the life cycle questions on there as well. This is when I would obviously, if I was in a classroom, we would do a lab where I take a 2-liter Coke bottle and we'd fill it with soil, and we would plant a seed, and we would water it daily, and we would watch the life cycle of our plant grow. But because I don't have a class full of students, I couldn't really do that. But if I did have a class of students, that is what I would do after the worksheet and make this where it goes on for weeks, and the students can look over and, observe and journal the process of the life cycle of this plant. Thank you.